Hello again, everybody. This is L.A. Kendrick coming to you from the House of Havoc, bringing you that horror work. Okay, enough of that. Just joking, trying to make sure you guys are awake. And this is part 3 of the Madisonville Monster. We're going to jump right into it. Last time we were here, we were discussing their night between Tamika and Tony's. Their night was going pretty well. So right around the 12:01 mark, they turn off the floodlights. They didn't need as much light. And once they didn't have enough light that covered the road, the highway. And they start seeing animals. But they saw deer cross, and then they see like raccoons, and then they see like a possum. Again, it's really cold. So when they notice that the animals are looking back, and they're hurriedly going across the highway, more so than normal. Because, most animals like deer, they take their time. A lot of times when they're crossing the road, say if a car is coming, they'll stop in the headlights or what have you. But they kept looking back, and they would go across the road really quick from left to right. And Tamika noticed it. And then she yelled out to Tony, "Are you noticing the animals acting a little funny?" And he says, "Well, yeah, but, don't jinx it." She says, "Okay, I'm not trying to jinx it. It's just a little odd that they're doing that." So she shuts her door back. He shuts his door back, and they go back to doing what they were doing. A few minutes later, they see something walk out of the wood line. It's large, and it seems to be haircut. It looks like a man at first. So they turn the floodlights on because it's standing in the middle of the road. You can see steam coming off the body, and it's looking angry. So when they hit the floodlights, hands come up and cover the eyes, and it lets out a shrieking yell, roar if you want to call it that, and it scares the both of them. And then it takes off into the wood line to the right, and they could see clearly this wasn't a man because of the steam coming off the body. And they could see once the floodlights hit, you could see the fur and the hair, and you could see the musculature of the body. And she yells to Tony, "Did you see that?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then they said, well, they could tell, Tamika had seen all the details, so pretty sure she could see the details that Tony saw the exact same thing that she'd seen. So Tamika is looking at Tony, and they're talking, and they're discussing it. And all of a sudden, out of the wood line, a huge log comes flying out, and it smashes the floodlight. And then Tony, because it's closest to Tony on Tony's side, his lights go out first. And then there's a huge rock that hits Tamika's and knocks out her floodlight. Now, there's still enough light on the road from the toll booths to see what's going on. And now they're freaking out at this point. So then the creature comes back out of the wood lines, and they know that this is the Sasquatch or the wild man of Kentucky. And Tony's like not understanding what's going on, but he knows exactly what this is at this point. So it slaps the side of his toll booth, and it takes off running to the left past Tamika's. And then it comes back out and starts rocking her toll booth. So they get on the phone and call the Madisonville Police Department, and then they also call the Highway Patrol. But each one of these individual departments that they call are dealing with car wrecks that have happened, a really bad car wreck that had happened. So it's got them tied up, and they won't be able to make it to them for another 30 minutes, they said, at the most. So they try to contact the sheriff's office, and the sheriffs are tied up with some other stuff as well. And they were thinking, oh my God, this will be our luck. And so for the next 15 minutes, you just keep seeing this creature shaking the building, shaking the foundation of the toll booths violently. And then it would take off. And they would do a bluff charge and run back, and do another bluff charge and run back. So Tony has pepper spray. And when it runs up on Tony's toll booth for the second time, Tony sprays it. And it backs up, and it screams, and it runs into the forest, and it's screaming and bellowing and yelling. And then you see the boulders and you see the rocks. I won't call them boulders, but they were pretty nice size rocks. So they start hitting the plexiglass, and it starts to crack on Tony's booth. Then you see it come back out again. It smashes Tony's plexiglass completely with its hands, and it's reaching in trying to grab Tony and pull him out. So Tony's yelling. He starts beating it with the keyboard that he has, and he starts beating the hands of the creature. Creature pulls his hand back out, runs back into the forest line, into the wood line, and then Tony runs to Tamika's toll booth. And once he does this, now they're huddled together, and then the creature comes out in the middle of the road, steam coming off the body again, steam coming out of the face. You can just see it heavily pant. You can see it breathing heavily, and you can also hear it, and it's swinging its arms left to right, and then it's joined by a second one, and they start doing bluff charges to Tony and Tamika. Well, with this happening like this, they're trying to figure out an escape plan. They're not going to stay here. They're not going to wait for the cops or anybody to show up to save them. They're going to get out and they're going to save themselves. They're not going to play this game. They don't understand what's going on. They know they're being attacked by this creature. They did try to pull Tony out, and it was probably going to kill him. And so the creature comes and does another bluff charge again. And when he does, Tamika, there's a road flare. So Tamika ignites the road flare, and she throws it at it. And it stops the creature in its tracks because it hits the body, and some of the fur actually catches on fire a little bit. So it's running, trying to get the flame off of it. But then the second one does the same thing, and it charges as well. So Tony does the same thing Tamika did with the road flare, and it runs off into the wood line. And the flares are going pretty good, and they're keeping the creatures off of them. I mean, everything just goes dead silent. And then you hear the screams from both sides of the road. So both creatures ran to one side of the one side of the road, and they can still hear screaming, like in some kind of coordinated attack from the other side of the road. So now they feel like they're being surrounded, and they really are. And the really ironic thing about it, there are no vehicles coming up and down the highway. Granted, then there's that fog. It's not as thick as the normal nights, but it's still fairly thick to where they can't see what's going on. And they know they're in for the fight of their life. And they're not willing to do that. So Tamika grabs her knife, and Tony has a standard pocket knife to try to fight these things off. And so the two creatures come from the right side of the highway, and then they smash the plexiglass on Tamika's toll booth, and they reach in trying to grab them as well. And so they stab it, and they keep stabbing. And there's blood on the knife, and there's blood inside of the toll booth. And as the creatures are running away, Tamika has the good sense to grab her Polaroid, and she takes a picture. In fact, she takes a couple of pictures, and she gets a couple of good shots of the creatures. But with all this happening, and the creatures running off from being cut, and that was the second attack. So the third one, the third physical attack, they didn't want to wait around for that because they knew that if they did, it was probably not going to be pretty. So they both bolt to their cars, they jump in the vehicles, and they leave the toll booth wide open. And they drive off, and they never return to that job again. Now, mind you, the state troopers and the local police department and sheriff department actually arrive on the scene. They see the blood, and then they see the blood, and they, later on, they get in contact with Tamika and Tony and Tamika explain what they've seen, and they actually show the pictures of the Polaroids. So they were sending the blood in for DNA analysis, and I mean, both of them are so shook up that, they can't really even explain what they're seeing, so they try to let the pictures do the talking for them. But these two creatures attack them violently, and this is why the turnover is so high at night. They've never had anything happen to this degree or this level, but it's still what kept the other people, what kept the turnover rate for that particular job shift so high. And Tamika and Tony never returned to those jobs because they were practically almost killed by a Sasquatch or two. So Tamika packs up, and she leaves that area, and she's never seen or heard from again. So she changes her whole life. That one incident, which is a monumental incident. It's not like it's something that happens every day. And Tony has gone on. He's written a couple of books about it, and he's actually become like a Sasquatch surveyor. He wants to see more and know more about what's happening and where these creatures originate from. So he's actually now he's a squatcher, as they call him, where he's hunting them and trying to figure out and trying to get more evidence. But the blood that was spilled that night from the creatures and the DNA test, Tony never heard anything back from the departments. And he's been really trying to get the information on it. So he feels like there's some kind of cover-up, some kind of conspiracy going on with the creature and the blood, because he knows what he saw. Tamika knows what she saw. And so, with that being said, that brings the conclusion to the Madisonville Monster. And this was part 3. Now remember, everybody, like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you want to donate to my Cash App, it is $outrage95. All right? I also have other additional work that's already published, and I'm trying to get my next 2 books out. But they're on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Nook, Kindle, Ingram, and you can go to my Facebook page and my Twitter account, okay? Under the same name. Twitter is at LA Kendrick 25, and LA Kendrick Facebook, okay? I appreciate all comments, all donations, everything that you guys do that makes this possible, makes this fun, getting these stories out to you guys, keeping you guys entertained. That's what it's all about. That's my job, and definitely trying to bring you guys entertainment at its finest and its highest quality, okay? Let me know what I'm doing wrong. Let me know what I'm doing good, and I appreciate everything that you guys do. Don't take anything personal. And you can possibly win fitness shirts, t-shirts, and autographed books from myself, and autographed comic books, which I have those as well. So remember, this has been L.A. Kendrick from the House of Havoc. Remember, check in your closets, check under your beds, check the dark recesses of your home. And if you happen to work at night, check your surroundings and check under your car, because you never know what's lurking, trying to make you a story. And this is L.A. Kendrick, bringing you the heavy.